The Führerbunker was an air raid shelter located near the Reich Chancellery in Berlin, Germany. It was part of a subterranean bunker complex constructed in two phases which were completed in 1936 and 1944. It was the last of the Führer headquarters used by Adolf Hitler. Hitler took up residence in the Führerbunker on January 16, 1945, and it became the center of the Nazi regime until the last week of World War II in Europe. Hitler married Eva Braun here during the last week of April 1945, shortly before they committed suicide. After the war, both the old and new Chancellery buildings were leveled by the Soviets. Despite some attempts at demolition, the underground complex remained largely undisturbed until 1988–89. During reconstruction of that area of Berlin, the sections of the old bunker complex that were excavated were for the most part destroyed. The site remained unmarked until 2006, when a small plaque with a schematic was installed. Some corridors of the bunker still exist, but are sealed off from the public. Construction. The Reich Chancellery bunker was initially constructed as a temporary air raid shelter for Hitler. Increased bombing of Berlin led to expansion of the complex as an improvised permanent shelter. The elaborate complex consisted of two separate shelters, the Führerbunker, completed in 1936, and the Führerbunker, located 2.5 meters lower than the Führerbunker and to the west-southwest, completed in 1944. They were connected by a stairway set at right angles and could be closed off from each other by a bulkhead and steel door. The Führerbunker was located 1.5 meters beneath the cellar of a large reception hall behind the old Reich Chancellery at Wilhelmstrasse 77. The Führerbunker was located about 8.5 meters beneath the garden of the old Reich Chancellery, 120 meters north of the new Reich Chancellery building at Führerstrasse 6. Besides being deeper underground, the Führerbunker has significantly more reinforcement. Its roof was made of concrete almost 3 meters thick. About 30 small rooms were protected by approximately 4 meters of concrete. Exits led into the main buildings, as well as an emergency exit up to the garden. The Führerbunker development was built by the Hochtief Company as part of an extensive program of subterranean construction in Berlin begun in 1940. Hitler's accommodations were in this newer, lower section, and by February 1945 it had been decorated with high-quality furniture taken from the Chancellery, along with several framed oil paintings. After descending the stairs into the lower section and passing through the steel door, there was a long corridor with a series of rooms on each side. On the right side were a series of rooms which included generator ventilation rooms and the telephone switchboard. On left side was Eva Braun's bedroom sitting room, an antechamber, which led into Hitler's study office. On the wall hung a large portrait of Frederick the Great, one of Hitler's heroes. A door led into Hitler's modestly furnished bedroom. Next to it was the conference map room, which had a door that led out into the waiting room ante-room. As the Führerbunker was below the water table, conditions were unpleasantly damp, with pumps running continuously to remove groundwater. A diesel generator provided electricity, and well water was pumped in as the water supply. Communications systems included a telex, a telephone switchboard, and an army radio set with an outdoor antenna. As conditions deteriorated at the end of the war, Hitler received much of his war news from BBC radio broadcasts and via courier. Events in 1945. Hitler moved into the Führerbunker on January 16, 1945. He was joined by his senior staff, including Martin Bormann. In April 1945, Eva Braun, Joseph Goebbels, his wife Magda, and their 6 children took residence in the upper Führerbunker. 2 or 3 dozen support, medical, and administrative staff were also sheltered there. These included Hitler's secretaries, a nurse named Erna Flegel, and telephonist Roger Smisch. Early on, Hitler continued to utilize the undamaged wing of the Reich Chancellery, where he held afternoon military conferences in his large study. Afterwards, he would have tea with his secretaries before going back down into the bunker complex for the night. After several weeks of this routine, Hitler seldom left the bunker except for short strolls in the Chancellery garden with his dog Blondie. The bunker was crowded and the atmosphere was oppressive. Air raids occurred daily. Hitler mostly stayed on the lower level, where it was quieter and he could sleep. Conferences took place for much of the night, often until 0500. On April 16 the Red Army started the Battle of Berlin, and by April 19 the Red Army started to encircle the city. On April 20, his 56th birthday, Hitler made his last trip to the surface. In the ruined garden of the Reich Chancellery, he awarded Iron Crosses to boy soldiers of the Hitler Youth. That afternoon, Berlin was bombarded by Soviet artillery for the first time. In denial about the dire situation, Hitler placed his hopes on the units commanded by Waffen-SS General Felix Steiner, the Armeeartillerielung Steiner. On April 21, Hitler ordered Steiner to attack the northern flank of the encircling Soviet salient and ordered the German Ninth Army, southeast of Berlin, to attack northward in a pincer attack. By that evening, Red Army tanks reached the outskirts of Berlin. At his afternoon situation conference on April 22, Hitler was told Steiner's forces had not moved. Hitler fell into a tearful rage when he realized that the attack was not going to be carried out. He openly declared for the first time the war was lost and blamed his generals. He announced he would stay in Berlin until the end and then shoot himself. On April 23, Hitler appointed General of the Artillery Helmut Zeidling, commander of the LVI Panzer Corps, as the commander of the Berlin defense area, replacing Lieutenant Colonel Ernst Kether. Despite the commands being issued from the Führerbunker bunker, by April 25 the Soviets had consolidated their investment of Berlin, and there was no prospect that the German defense could do anything but delay the city's capture. Hitler summoned Field Marshal Robert Ritter von Greim from Munich to Berlin to take over command of the Luftwaffe from Hermann Gar Ring. Along with his mistress and crack test pilot, Hanna Reich, he arrived on April 26. On April 28 Hitler learned that Reichsführerhauptquartiere SS Heinrich Himmler, who had left Berlin on April 20, was trying to discuss surrender terms with the Western Allies through Count Foch Bernadotte. Hitler considered this treason. Enraged, he ordered Himmler's arrest and had Hermann Fegelein shot. On the same day, General Hans Krebs made his last telephone call from the Führerbunker bunker to Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, Chief of German Armed Forces High Command in Führerbunker Rustenburg. Krebs told him that if relief did not arrive within 48 hours, all would be lost. Keitel promised to exert the utmost pressure on Generals Walther Wienck, commander of the 12th Army, and Theodor Buss, commander of the 9th Army. Meanwhile Hitler's private secretary, Martin Bormann, wired to German Admiral Karl Dahl Nitz, Reich Chancellery a heap of rubble. He said that the foreign press was reporting fresh acts of treason and that without exception RNER, Wienck and the others must give evidence of their loyalty by the quickest relief of the Führerbunker. That evening, von Greim and Reich flew out from Berlin in an Aradoa 96 trainer. Field Marshal von Greim was ordered to get the Luftwaffe to attack the Soviet forces that had just reached Potsdamer Platz. During the night of April 28, General Wienck reported to Keitel that his 12th Army had been forced back along the entire front and it was no longer possible for his army to relieve Berlin. Keitel gave Wienck permission to break off the attempt. After midnight on the night of 28 April 29, Hitler married Eva Braun in a small civil ceremony within the Führerbunker bunker. Hitler then took Secretary Traudl Junge to another room and dictated his last will and testament. At approximately 0400, Hans Krebs, Wilhelm Bergdorf, Goebbels, and Bormann witnessed and signed the documents. Hitler then retired to bed. Late in the evening of April 29, Krebs contacted Jodl by radio, request immediate report. Firstly of the whereabouts of Wienck's spearheads. Secondly of time intended to attack. Thirdly of the location of the 9th Army. Fourthly of the precise place in which the 9th Army will break through. Fifthly of the whereabouts of General Rudolf Holst's spearhead. In the early morning of April 30, Jodl replied to Krebs, firstly, Wienck's spearhead bogged down south of Schuyler Lake. Secondly, 12th Army therefore unable to continue attack on Berlin. Thirdly, bulk of 9th Army surrounded. Fourthly, Holst's Corps on the defensive. During the morning of April 30, SS Brigadeführerhauptquartiere Wilhelm Mohnke, commander of the center district of Berlin, informed Hitler he would be able to hold for less than 2 days. Later that morning Eidling informed Hitler that the defenders would probably exhaust their ammunition that night and again asked him for permission to break out. At about 13:00 Eidling finally received permission. In the Führerhauptquartiere bunker that afternoon, Hitler shot himself and Braun took cyanide. In accordance with Hitler's instructions, the bodies were burned in the garden behind the Reich Chancellery. In accordance with Hitler's last will and testament, Goebbels became the new head of government and Chancellor of Germany. At 3:15, Reich Chancellery Goebbels and Bormann sent a radio message to Der Paragraph Nitz informing him of Hitler's death. In accordance with Hitler's last wishes, Der Paragraph Nitz was appointed as the new president of Germany. At about 04:00 on May 1, Krebs talked to General Vasily Huikov, commander of the Soviet 8th Guards Army. Huikov demanded unconditional surrender of the remaining German forces. Krebs did not have the authority to surrender, so he returned to the bunker. In the late afternoon, Goebbels had his children poisoned. At about 20:00, Goebbels and his wife left the bunker. Close to the entrance they bit on cyanide ampoules and either simultaneously shot themselves or were given a coup de grace by the SS guard detailed to dispose of their bodies. Eidling had given the order for the survivors to break out to the northwest. The plan got underway at around 23:00. The first group from the Reich Chancellery, led by Mohnke, tried but could not break through the Soviet rings and was captured the next day. Like others from the Führerhauptquartiere bunker who were captured, he was interrogated by Smersh. On the third breakout attempt from the Reich Chancellery, made around 01:00, Bormann managed to cross the Spree. Arthur Axmann, who followed the same route, reported seeing Bormann's body a short distance from the Wiedendamme Bridge. The last defenders in the area of the bunker complex were the French SS volunteers of the 33rd Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS Charlemagne, who remained until the early morning of May 2 to prevent the Soviets from capturing the bunker on May Day. At 1 o'clock the Soviets picked up a radio message from the German LVI Corps requesting a ceasefire. Early in the morning of May 2, the Soviets captured the Reich Chancellery. General Eidling surrendered with his staff at 6 o'clock. Down in the Führerhauptquartiere bunker, General Krebs and General Bergdorf committed suicide by gunshot to the head. Johannes Henschel, the master electromechanic for the bunker complex, stayed after everyone else had either committed suicide or left, as the field hospital and the Reich Chancellery above needed power and water. He surrendered to the Red Army as they entered the bunker complex on May 2 at 9 o'clock. The bodies of Goebbels' 6 children were discovered on May 3. They were found in their beds in the Vor bunker, with the clear mark of cyanide shown on their faces. Post-war events. The ruins of both Chancellery buildings were leveled by the Soviets between 1945 and 1949 as part of an effort to destroy the landmarks of Nazi Germany. The bunker largely survived, although some areas were partially flooded. In December 1947 the Soviets tried to blow up the bunker, but only the separation walls were damaged. In 1959 the East German government began a series of demolitions of the Chancellery, including the bunker. Because it was near the Berlin Wall, the site was undeveloped and neglected until 1988–89. During extensive construction of residential housing and other buildings on the site, work crews uncovered several underground sections of the old bunker complex. These were for the most part destroyed. Other parts of the Chancellery underground complex were uncovered, but these were ignored, filled in, or resealed. Government authorities wanted to destroy the last vestiges of these Nazi landmarks. The construction of the buildings in the area around the Führerhauptquartiere bunker was a strategy for ensuring the surroundings remained anonymous and unremarkable. The emergency exit point for the Führerhauptquartiere bunker was occupied by a car park. On June 8, 2006, during the lead-up to the 2006 FIFA World Cup, an information board was installed to mark the location of the Führerbunker bunker. The board, including a schematic diagram of the bunker, can be found at the corner of Innenministerium Currency RTEN and Gertrude Kolmer, two small streets about 3 minutes' walk from Potsdamer Platz. Hitler's bodyguard, Rochesmisch, one of the last people living who was in the bunker at the time of Hitler's suicide, was on hand for the ceremony. See also, Führer Headquarters, Wolf's Lair, Nazi architecture, Matsushiro Underground Imperial Headquarters, explanatory notes. Citations. Sources. Further reading, Bolt, Gerard. Hitler, The Last 10 Days. New York, Coward, McCann and Joagan. ISBN A978-0-698-10531-7 CIU. General Staff, Geographical Section. Ramsey, Winston G., ed. Berlin, Allied Intelligence Map of Key Buildings. After the Battle Battle of Britain International. ISBN A978-1-870067-33-1 Fest, Joachim. Inside Hitler's Bunker, The Last Days of the Third Reich. New York, Picador. ISBN A978-0-374-13577-5 Junge, Traudel. Ma One Quarter Lair, Melissa, ed. Until the Final Hour, Hitler's Last Secretary. New York, Arcade Publishing. ISBN A978-1-55970-728-2 Neubauer, Christoph. State for 1/4 Red durch Hitler's Berlin. Frankfurt on the Oder, Flashback Medienverlag. ISBN A978-3-9813977-0-3 O'Donnell, James P. 1978. The Bunker. New York, Da Capo Press. ISBN A978-0-306-80958-3 Petrova, Ada. Watson, Peter. The Death of Hitler, The Full Story with New Evidence from Secret Russian Archives. New York, Norton. ISBN A978-0-393-03914-6 Ryan, Cornelius. The Last Battle. New York, Simon & Schuster, Tizia, Tonila. Race for the Reichstag, The 1945 Battle for Berlin. London, Portland, Oregon, Routledge. ISBN A978-0-7146-4929-0 Trevor Roper, Hugh, 1947. The Last Days of Hitler. University of Chicago Press. ISBN A978-0-226-81224-3 External links, Scott. Berger, Donald. Hitler Slept Here, The Two Secret History of the Third Reich's Most Famous Place. Slate Magazine, The Führerbunker Bunker, Info and Plans. Malgo Media Services, The Bunker Personnel, The Who is Who of the Bunker. Malgo Media Services, Bunker Museum Euro-English version, Guide to Military Museums of Europe, 3D animation of the bunker by Atelier Neubauer.